get started for this. So what is this webinar about? We will talk about the practices, best practices for database schema design, and not just about the database schema, although I understand that it could be useful at any design adventure you can engage in, but mostly we will talk about how proper schema design can affect performance and the usability of Iron Spin Designer. You know that Iron Spin Designer creates data-centric applications, which means that database is the central and integral part of the designer, meaning that to create application, designer has to use database, or in other words, it has to use the schema. So modification of this schema and normalization of the schema greatly help designer to create those applications properly. And we will talk how those changes will help you further down the road. Iron Spin Designer builds web application. It builds ISPX pages. It builds code behind C# or Visual Basic. It's your choice, of course. It builds data access layer, which allows application to read or write data to the database. It can create store procedures, and it does all of this using your database. And that's why the schema, the properly created schema, is very, very important to allow designer to do best job. So how to get most out of Iron Spin Designer? Well, first you have to prepare your database. Iron Spin Designer uses database schema to create pages, and which pages would be created is kind of dictated by the database schema. Pages layout and pages functionality are driven by schema. For example, if your schema doesn't have, or your table in your schema doesn't have a primary key, designer will be able to create, for example, add or edit page. If you didn't set up foreign keys, designer will be able to create child master detail relationships, and so on. So pages layout itself and the pages functionality are driven by schema. Also, application performance depends on your schema. We'll talk about it a bit later, but it's important to remember that schema and the way how you organize your schema is the most important factor in defining what performance of your application. So we have sometimes customers who open support cases and asking us why this particular page doesn't load properly or doesn't load fast enough, or even when they see timeout exceptions or something like this. 99% of time, the reason for all these problems is not properly created schema. And I will talk about it a bit later, how to improve the performance of your database and of your application eventually, because application needs to read data from schema from your database. It needs to write data back to your database. So application completely depends on your database and on your database performance as well. Also, properly designed schema is easily extensible. It's very difficult, and my experience shows almost never possible to create schema the way that it will not be modified later on when your requirements for your application will change. We used to say that your application, your project, is kind of a live thing. It's not something that you created once and forgot forever. Most of the time you would need to change and update it. And a lot of times you need to change schema. Well, a designer has the ability to synchronize with the schema and suck in all those changes. However, even that doesn't help if your schema is designed the way that you cannot modify it without, for example, rearranging all your data. So again, properly designed schema allows you to maintain your application and extend it easily. Now, I want to again emphasize the fact that to create a web application with Iron Spin Designer, you don't need to know the coding technique, or you don't need to know ISPX, or you don't need to know other .NET concept. And also, you're kind of not required to be a database expert, although knowledge of database schemas, foreign keys, and SQL Server is really helpful. And in fact, it's much more helpful and much more useful than knowledge of the, let's say, coding. So please spend some time before you start doing your application. You need to spend some time on your schema. So let's go and see what I'm talking about. It's better your database structured as more the designer can do. As I said, you can not just create better looking pages, but you can get more web pages. And of course, designer would be able to create more sophisticated pages, much detailed web pages, and so on. So the most important thing, and the thing where I would start, and I suppose you should start before you even open your designer, and before you even start thinking about the application itself, the most important thing first is to prepare your schema. And by preparing schema, I mean normalizing your schema. Well, there are several formal concepts in the schema normalization, so-called normal forms. There's first normal form, second normal form, third normal form. And there's a lot of literature about it, but I am not going to go in those details. But I will just try to kind of just touch the surface of this concept and explain what all these normal forms and normalization itself is about. So the most important concept is you should avoid repeating information into one table. Meaning that, for example, on this slide, you can see there is a kind of piece of the diagram from the very simple schema. But even in this simple schema, you can see that we have, for example, orders table. Orders table is a table where, obviously, all the orders of this, maybe it's CRM or maybe it's kind of store schema or something like this, all orders are placed in the orders table. Well, what I can place in the orders table? Well, technically, I could place the whole content, like who was the customer, what his was first name, last name, what employee created this order, again, his first name, maybe last name, and something else, what products were sold, how do we ship it, and so on, so on. But it would be very bad design, because I would have a lot of repeating information. For example, if one customer purchased several things, placed several orders, right? Then I would see in this table information about this customer several times repeated. The same first name, the same last name, the same address, etc. The same is true if I put the information about employees. If one employee created 100 orders, well, we 100 times repeat information. And it's bad not just because the table becomes bigger. It's bad because it's very difficult then to maintain this information, to make it to make any changes to this information. Imagine I would change one particular record and change the last name of the customer. Well, what will happen for other records, for the orders for the same customer? Well, then I need to go and make sure that they are changed accordingly. So the major rule is do not include any repeating information in the same table. For example, if I know that my customer would, that any customer could place several orders, well, then in the table orders, I would include just a pointer to this customer, or in other words, foreign key. So I would include customer ID, and I will create separate table for all the customers. And this separate table will hold all the information for each customer. And this information would not be repeated because each line in the customer's table will have customer ID as a unique identifier, or it could be any other identifier, but this is the primary key. And it will have all other information like name, last name, email, etc. The same thing I would do for employees. And then if this customer places several orders and this employee opens like hundreds of orders, each of those orders will only have foreign key pointing to this employee. In this case, it's very easy to update information about a customer or employee. You just go to this table and change it. So this approach I can call is to creating a schema where I have index tables and detail tables. In this case, customers or employees or shippers would be detail tables, while the orders is effectively index table, meaning that orders just has indexes pointing to other tables, to detail tables, where all the information regarding this particular index is held. So this is the most important concept which should be used when you're just thinking about your schema. Do not put repeating information in one table. It's also has another effect. It's not just how easy it's to update. It also helps to make those tables much more efficient, because as less fields you have in one table, as more efficient will be access to data for this particular table. If you have a table with 200 fields, and believe me, we've seen customer databases with tables with 300 fields, as slow this particular table will be, because when you create a request to this table, will it be SQL Server or Oracle, doesn't matter, the server itself needs to process a lot of fields in one table to make any search. Plus, the page itself will get a lot of fields. And to load these fields, it's effectively to load the control, so it also will be slower. So creating index and detailed tables style of schema helps you not just to verify that your data are properly updated, but also helps you to make it more efficient. But it's not just that. Let's go a bit further and see some other examples why it would be useful. So-called parent-child or master-detail relationship. It's kind of the piece of the diagram I just shown, where I have orders and customer's ID. When this type of relationship is present in the schema, IronSpeed Designer would be able to create the pages which automatically would be configured as a parent and child. So, for example, you could have the edit or show record page for a customer, and it automatically will have a detailed table for all the orders placed for this customer, which is very convenient because you're editing the only parent record or looking at parent record, and you immediately have access to all related information for this parent. Also, another example of another advantage of this type of design is the lookup tables. Let me go back again for a second to this picture, to this slide with the diagram. You see, for example, right here I have the shippers table, and it's very, very small table. It just has an ID, name, and phone. Well, technically, in some cases, it could be just ID and name. The good example for such table would be, for example, the table of, let's say, states, different states in the USA. Imagine that I have a table which has a state. Well, what I can do? Technically, if I have state field, let's say, in the address, then I can just fill this information as a text with some string. But much better approach to have it as a foreign key, pointing to the separate table which holds states similar like we have shippers in this case. Why it is so? Well, when you have separate table, then designer first is able to generate special lookups. For example, if you edit this address, instead of just a text box where you can type anything, you can type CA for California, or you can type California for California, or maybe somebody type just CAL for California. Instead, you would just have the foreign key pointer table where California defined one way. And then you will have drop-down list configured for you automatically in the page which designer generates. And by doing that, you avoid different types of spelling of the same exact state. And then it would be much easier later on to maintain your data. You could sort easily. You can search for certain state easily. You don't need to worry of what kind of spelling could be. So, again, having the index and detailed tables for any repeating data is always helps not just to make a database more efficient, but also to avoid any types of configuring data inside your database. And again, the rule of thumb, how to know which table should be indexed and which table should be detailed, well, just ask yourself a question. Do I have any repeating data in my table? For example, in this slide, if you see address could have a region, which is technically, if we are speaking, for example, about United States, region could be a state. Well, in this case, it would be better not to put region there, but instead put a separate table with those states, because they obviously would be repeating. If I have like 1,000 customers, right? How many states total we have? Only 50. So they obviously will be repeating in this 1,000 record a lot of times. Put them in a separate table, and then you can use kind of, in this table we could call lookup table, because effectively the whole to hold names and make sure that those names are always the same as many times you use this particular index. And the shippers table is a perfect example of such lookup table. Now, another important thing. Imagine you created, you thought through and you created your perfectly normalized schema. Next thing you want to do is to index. Index all the fields which are primary keys. Index all your foreign keys. And also index all fields which you plan to search by or filter by. For example, if I have a field for, let's say, city in my table, and I plan to filter by cities or search by cities, index this field. In fact, I would suggest to index all fields except binaries, except images, and maybe except very large strings which are supposed to hold big chunks of text. You can technically index everything else. Indexing hugely improves performance because lookups and any request to the tables most of the time will involve some kind of where clause where you set condition that I want to retrieve record only when city equals to San Francisco, for example. Or it could be a grouping by certain field. Or it could be retrieving just certain fields. With all those operations, or maybe you want to join certain tables, all these operations would hugely become much faster, and database becomes much more efficient if you index by those fields. Currently, Iron Speed Designer doesn't support so-called full text index. It supports, of course, indexes. So how to create an index? Well, I have there a slide which shows you what you technically should do, but I can also show you, as well as we're talking about it, the example on the real database. Here is my SQL Server Management Studio. And for example, I'm sorry, I want to index, let's say, any table, let's say employees table, which is right here. What will I do? I right-click on this table if I have a diagram, or I can do the same thing on the menu right here. So the same thing, I can go to the table right here and right-click on it. And I will see here, in both ways, I will see here indexes. So for example, here I can see indexes keys. The same you can see for the database itself, indexes. Now, for indexes keys, when I click on indexes keys, either way, is it on the, will it be on the tree or on the diagram? You see, right now it has only 3 indexes. I just pulled this database from some server. I don't know even who created it. Maybe it looks like a standard Microsoft database. Now, to create new index is very simple. You just say add. It's already created one index. Then usually you can select a new field. Well, employee ID already selected, looks like, so you can select some new field which you want to use for indexing. Maybe in this case it would be, I have last name already, right? Okay, let's make it first name, for example. Then the order, well, usually you can just keep it as ascending. It basically doesn't matter. And I suggest you to give some unique name to every index you create, because then it would be easier to look and see which indexes are created and which are not. So this is basically the whole thing you need to do. So you create an index for the first name, right? That's how you create indexes. I will close this and come back to my presentation. So once again, don't forget to index your database. And the performance could increase several times when you index them, especially for any searches, especially if you need to sort by some field, especially if you have a lot of records. Next, you indexed, you created, you designed your schema, and you created fields. But I have to tell you that before you even start to create your tables, and before you start even thinking about how you will design the schema, you need to think what type of data will be in your schema. Naming conventions is extremely important, not for the database itself. Of course, database doesn't care how you name your fields, and the performance of database doesn't depend on that at all. But the designer uses the schema as the only source of information to create an application. There is no other source for designer. It's only schema and schema alone. So for designer, to make best of Iron Speed Designer, it's very important to have proper naming in the database. First of all, use meaningful names. Because the ISP designer used the names in your schema to create labels. So if you use meaningful names, your labels most likely would be will already have exact wording as you would like. You don't need, of course you can change any of the label, but it's a huge job if you have hundreds of pages, go to every page and change it. Instead, if you already created proper name for a field, designer will already create a label which you don't need to change. For example, you could, let's see, if you go back, for example, to the schema which we were just looking at. For example, I could have employees, but instead of these names, I could have field 1, field 2, field 3, field 4, field 5. What will happen then? Well, then designer, which I have right here, will create labels field 1, field 2, field 3, totally useless. On the other hand, when my fields are order ID, product ID, unit price, quantity, and discount, the labels are already created from scratch. They are created properly. So, for example, let me go here and show you what I mean. Also, yes, I don't need security. Let's disable it. So, meaningful names. Also, it's not just meaningful name, meaning that it reflects some kind of content. It's very useful when you use camel case. Camel case means that if you concatenate several words inside one label, start each word with capital letter. For example, username. It's technically, this is the whole label. There is no spaces or anything in between. But if you have U capital and N capital, then, or use unit price in this case, in case of this table, then designer will automatically understand that this label, this field actually represents a meaningful sentence, and it will insert a space in between. So like you see here, unit price is 2 words, so it's human readable. It doesn't look like something from database. It looks like a label created by designer, although it was all done automatically. We didn't do anything. Also notice, this is order and this is product. It doesn't have ID in it. This is actually very convenient because really you don't see ID. And why don't see ID here? Well, because our schema was designed properly, meaning that we have here, for this table, only foreign key index, which pointing to the other table, to, in this case, for example, the products table, which would be detailed table in this case. Designer smart enough to understand that if it is a foreign key, then for the content, most likely we don't want to use the foreign key itself, which is most likely unique identifier, or maybe a number, but instead we would like to use some other field, which would be first text field in this case. So instead of showing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it actually showed product name, which is much more convenient, okay? But if we're showing product name, why would we want to have column named product ID? It's not an ID already. So designer smart enough to, on looking on the schema, understand that if in the schema I have for the order details product starting with capital P and ID starting with uppercase I and D, to understand that, okay, this is 2 words and ID most likely is not needed in the label. So as you can see, just thinking about how to name those fields helps to create these labels exactly as we want them to have right from the box without even doing anything. So once again, I'll repeat, naming is really important. Use camel case, then designer will parse names and based on the capitalization and convert them to human readable. Also, names of the tables are actually important because names of the tables actually used to name pages. And you don't want to have pages named table 1, table 2, table 3. Plus, you need to pay attention on the names. For example, let's see again the same schema. You see, employees is a plural, order details is a plural, and categories is a plural. Why? Well, designer is smart enough to understand that if a table has multiple records, then the name with the plural case would be much more. So if we want to show employees records. However, when it's one record, designer will figure out that in this case it should be employee. So it's if you pay attention to the naming, ISP designer would be able to use those names and create pages, create fields create so-called display foreign key as text fields which are shown instead of numbers properly, and you basically won't need to do any work to convert this to the view you want to have eventually. Now, one more thing about the schema: field data type. It's very important that you think through what type of data this particular field would be holding. For example, you can have a string field, and you can by default just to set all your string fields to be, let's say, varchar 100. Well, even if you put only 2 symbols or 5 symbols in this field, it will perfectly work, right? However, RNSP Designer, when it analyzes schema, it tries to distinguish between short text fields, which is, for example, fields for a city, for a state, for a country, for a name, and so on, and very long string fields or very large strings, which usually used to have pieces of text like description, like some notes, and such other information which most likely requires several lines or even several paragraphs of text. So designer, based on the schema, fields which are shorter generates as a single line text boxes, and fields which are longer or very large strings, it generates other controls. For editable page, it will generate the multi-line text box, which could also use the rich text editor. For example, if we look on this generated application, and I see that, for example, on the categories, here is the database type, by the way, all database fields and tables and their properties configured in this database tab in Designer. So, for example, if I look on this description field, I would see that it's a very large string. So what Designer will do with it? When it sees that it's a very large string, it will create for this particular control, if I go to Add Categories page, Rich Text Editor. But you don't want to have rich text editor for every field, obviously. If you have just a field for a name, you want to have it just a text box. So that's important that when you create the schema, you create proper fields. Also, if you, for example, want to keep only 2 values on the field, instead of using integer, which is also can keep 2 values, 0, 1, but it also can keep any other integer numbers, you create better bit type, because when Designer sees that this particular field is a bit type, it will create checkbox instead of text box. And the checkbox is a absolutely perfect type of the control you want to use for this type of fields. Now, if you plan to keep to store image in certain field, then use image type instead of binary. Again, both will work, but Designer will know that, okay, this is image field, so let's show the thumbnail on the page, and let's create the pop-up for this image. For example, you can see that right here we have image field. It's type of image. If you look at the type of the field, it will be saying image. Now on my page, if I go to the categories page, you'll see those images are rendered as a thumbnail, and if you hover over it, it will create a pop-up. It will not do it if it will be just binary, because binary could be a file. You cannot just pop up a file, you know. So once again, pay attention to the types of the field. Use money when it's currency field, and so on. Now let's talk about the query. So we created schema. Schema is normalized. All the data types are correct, and the names are proper, etc. Now we want to create some complex queries. Well, sometimes you want to populate data. For example, I want to join a couple of tables and show on the page data from different tables. Or maybe you want to have more complex query, like, for example, distinct or some nested query or something like this, which Designer is not able to create automatically. What to do in this case? Well, the best way is to create database views. You can create them through Microsoft Enterprise Management Studio or any other tool, but when you create view, RNSP Designer will treat this view exactly the way as it would treat normal database table. So, for example, on the application which I've shown, there's a bunch of views in this particular schema. And, for example, I can click on this database and expand the views, Neither one right now is included in the application. That's why they're grayed out. But there are a bunch of views. For example, this is alphabetical list of products. And there are the category cells for particular year, etc. So these views are created from tables. And you can create view right here in the Management Studio or any other tool easily. For example, if you expand this, you can see that this particular view, right-click, click Design. This is the query which populates this view. I can easily go here and modify this query, and it will populate different view. I may remove some fields. I can add another join. Right here is a join for products and categories, but I can have any other join. So that's how you create view. It's very simple. You can even type in the query over here, or you can use some tools which allows you to populate views. So from the perspective of designer, view is the same thing as a table. However, there's of course certain things you need to remember. Okay. To make this view behave exactly as a table, you need to make it updatable. By updatable, I mean the designer should be able to create add record, edit record, or edit table pages, meaning it would need to be able to access this particular record you want to edit. How to do this? Well, there are two ways. You can either set primary key and declare this primary key right in the database. Then designer will, of course, recognize that and will update those records using this primary key. Or alternatively, if you cannot update your database, for example, you are not a database administrator, or you don't have rights, or you don't have even access to this database except just for connection string which allows you to read and write data. In this case, you would be able to create the virtual primary key. So again, this slide tells you that you would need to have primary keys even in the tables, not necessarily only in the views to update and create data. But again, if you're not permitted to modify your database, you can create a virtual primary key in Designer. So how to do this? Well, I can show you, or you can look on the slide, but better let me go just strictly to the Designer and show you the same thing on the live product. For example, this is a view. Let me first include this view in the application. So I will say, okay, now it's included. And now I can see that I don't have any keys set. You can see primary key is no for any field, and here is no too. Well, technically, I know that this particular view is created from the join of two tables, categories and products. So I would assume that my key should be combination. It should be composed primary key, which composed from two fields, product ID and category ID. How to set it? Very simple. I select category ID. I go here and say, this would be my virtual primary key. Make it yes. Now I want to make it composed, so I go to product ID and say, okay, this is also part of the virtual primary key. So it says yes of two fields. That is it. I don't need to do anything else. And right now, if I go to application wizard and add any page for this particular view, which is again pretty easy, you just select pages and select this database, and that was this particular database. So scroll down. Now, if I select this particular view, I would be able to create all the pages. And let's see, they're shown as a black. That means everything is okay. Now imagine I want to also create for the current product list. And they become red. Why? Because Designer will tell you primary key is required. How can I set this primary key? Well, there's also possibility not necessarily you need to go to these databases tab. You can do it right in the application wizard on the keys tab. It offers me, do you want to add virtual primary key for product ID? Well, yes, because this particular view, current product list, is nothing else but list of products. It's just organized slightly differently. So I can easily set product ID as a primary key. Now, when I finish, I will get pages which will include add, edit, and show, which otherwise would not be created, because otherwise, if I did not specify those keys, the application wouldn't be able to update. You see, we've got edit, and show page. So that's how you create keys, and that's why you need them, because otherwise, if we want to set up those keys, you won't get any of those pages. Now, let's go back and talk about the foreign keys. Again, as I was saying several times before when I have been talking about normalizing of the schema, you have to declare foreign keys in your database. Because when you declare a foreign key, you're effectively setting up master detail or parent-child is the same thing, relationship between databases. And ISP designer would be able to create those type of pages. For example, if you look on the already created pages, and let's say I go to show categories page, you would see that this is my categories record. So it shows this particular record for beverages, but also here is a detail table. It's immediately created. Or even better example, let me go to, let's say, show order details page. No, so that is a child. I wanted to go with something which I have. Oh, here a good example. I think show employees, because yes, employees is a parent of several different tables. First of all, it's parent of orders. So here you can see all orders for this employee. It's parent of employee territories, which is lookup table, nothing else. And also it has a foreign key pointing to itself. Every employee record in this particular schema has a field pointing to itself, pointing to the employee which this particular employee reports to. And now I have to go to table and see whom it reports to. Well, nobody reports to this guy, but if I will go to other employees like Buchanan, you will see a list of people who reports to Buchanan. So once again, foreign keys are extremely, extremely important. It allows you to create master detail pages, and every page could be master detail if you have foreign key, for example, even for lookup table. Also, it allows to page data from multiple tables, and even more important feature, which I already mentioned today, it allows you to set up so-called DFKA, which is short for display foreign key as. Again, if we go to designer, you will see, for example, right here on the show order details table, my product IDs are shown as the name of a product, and my order IDs shown as a shipper. Well, how does it happen? Very simple. If I go here to my databases tab, open my order details table, and click on this product ID field, first of all, I see that this is a foreign key pointing to products table, but also it's set to be displayed as a field, a different field from the products table. It's set to be displayed as a product name. So designer effectively does it automatically when you create a page, but of course later on you can go here and change this. You can say any formula you want, and if you attend our webinar about formulas, we will talk about it later on. But the bottom line is that if you have foreign key, you can access data from the table where this foreign key pointing to, and you can show this field any way you want. For example, for the orders, it was shown as a ship name. Well, and the ship name may be not the ideal choice here, because maybe ship name is not something very obvious. Instead of ship name, I might want to show, well, in this particular case, I don't have much to show, but I can show ship country for some reason. Would be maybe not ideal either, but you will see the change. So once again, declare foreign keys and use those foreign keys. They are very useful. Another aspect where the foreign keys come to the picture, so now you will see that my orders would be shown as a countries. One more very important aspect here you see, friends. Why you would want to show, why you want to set up foreign keys is because foreign key allows ISP designer to construct joins. And joins have to be constructed if you want to drag and drop charts, sums, counts, or filters from various tables. What I'm talking about is the following. For example, I want to, I go back to my, for example, categories, go back to my categories table, right? And I want here to drop some chart. And the chart, I want maybe sales per employee for this particular category. Well, again, it's not exactly a topic of the schema design, but just to illustrate how foreign key are used. let me go to charts, and I would go to sum of extended price from order detail and drop it here, and I will select employees over here per employee ID, and now we've got two join steps. You see, Designer automatically offers you to join three tables: employees, orders, and order details. How Designer knows that? Well, only because we have foreign keys set up. It's in orders table, there are foreign key pointing to employees table, and in the order details table, foreign key pointing to orders table. If we would not have those foreign keys, Designer would not be able to create this type of joins, and you wouldn't be able to create this chart. So foreign keys are really, really, really important. And again, if you are not permitted to modify your database, what to do? You can set up virtual foreign key in IronSpeed Designer. Exactly the same way as I just showed for the primary keys, in exactly same place, meaning that if I want to set up any foreign key, for example, for my view, let's say I want to say that product ID is a foreign key pointing to product table. You see here foreign keys, you click on here, you select this dot 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 button, and you say that my foreign key should point to product table and to product ID field. Done. Now it's a foreign key, and now we would have child table. We would be able to create a chart, and so on, and so on. So once again, the foreign keys is really important, and you can set up them also in application wizard on the key step, or you can set them up in the database step. This is about application wizard, and now I am ready for the questions, and I have a bunch of them. But before I go to that, let me return to my very first slide and emphasize the. Okay, return to very first slide. Let me hold on. Go to this guy and go to the beginning. Maybe show the slide. Oh, okay, it doesn't work out. Somehow I clicked the wrong button, but okay. Again, I want to emphasize the same thing I said, that you need to normalize schema. You have to index your fields. You have to pay attention for your namings and name all the fields and tables properly. And you need to take care about your fields data types, plus always think about primary keys and foreign keys, even for the views you create. So now let's go for a question, and I have quite a bit of them. So give me just one second. Okay, so let's start with the questions. The first question from John: should I create indexes on each of the SQL table columns that I used as a column heading filter fields in the? Yes, definitely 100% yes. For any column which is used in a column heading, you would like to create index. In fact, again, I would say you create index because all those columns are used for sorting. And if you look in the designer, for example, I will just show you the table I was mentioning, and this would be the show categories table, right? Let's go to the show. Now you will have the chart here, by the way, because I just dropped it. But nevertheless, just give it a second to build, and I will explain what's happening. You will see that IronSpeed Designer creates so-called sorting links for every heading of a column, which is possible to sort. Which means that, for example, we can sort by category name, right? Here is going. But you cannot sort by description or picture. Why? Because description is a very large string, and the picture is effectively image type of field. So you cannot index by indexes, by images, by binaries, or by very large strings. Anything else, index. And IronSpeed Designer does exactly this thing. It will create headings which are able to sort this column for all fields except binaries, except images, except very large strings. So yes, you have to do this. Okay, do this. Next question from Ann. Would it be better to have a ship name and address in customers table and have ship to customer ID in the orders table. Ship name, let me go to the schema back. Let me understand what are we talking about. So have the ship name and address in the customers table. Well, it depends on the type of your business, I would say so. You could do this, but you know, there's a lot of businesses could have the same customer but with different shipping addresses for the same customer. So either you, in the customers table itself, provide a link to many table, which will have all the shipping addresses, or you can maybe have ship address in the orders. Well, it's possible, but the thing is that, for example, if your customer is, let's say, Hewlett-Packard, Hewlett-Packard could have about 100 of different shipping addresses, depending on which you shipping Hewlett-Packard Brasilia, Hewlett-Packard in Palo Alto, or Hewlett-Packard in Canada. So you cannot just have one field for shipping in this case. But again, if your business is that you allow only one shipping address per customer, then definitely yes. If you allow to have shipping address different and you allow the customer to specify different shipping addresses every time, then better to have it in the orders table like in this schema. Or the third way, you can again have another table which is many-to-many, which will allow you to specify for each customer several shipping addresses. That could be too useful too. Next question from John. How do I make sure that each customer name field value is in fact unique value in customers table when this table uses customer ID as a primary key? Well, if you want to have customer name unique, well, this is the way you can go. So exactly in this situation, when you look on the customers table, this is the primary key, you see it. However, now you want to make company name, well, in this case, you say company name, right? Unique. You right-click on this. Go to indexes again. And in the indexes, you say the following. You set index to this company name. Here is the index already. And then mark it here is unique. If you mark it here is unique, database will ensure you never enter another company name with the same value, which is already present in the database. Next thing you will ask, okay, how do you do it on the, well, if you do this, then when you edit record and try to enter any name which is already used, you will get this type of message or exception from the database saying that this name was already used, something like this. So you will ensure it's unique. Of course, primary key is unique too, but this how you set up any field to be unique in your schema, which is not primary key and not identity. Okay. Next question from Paul. Just bought Iron Speed Designer. Please tell me how do I set default table panel row to display all items in database? I'm not quite sure what are you talking about really. If you could maybe clarify a bit more details what you mean by default table panel row. We have default page, but we don't have default tables, so I'm not sure I know what it is. So maybe you can send us some clarification. Next question from Shai. The question is, what is the difference between primary key and index in usage-wise? Which one do a better job if it is unique? Well, this index, the difference is very simple. The primary key is the field which is used by data access layer to retrieve this record. In fact, the query really generated by data access layer would be select star or select this, and this field from this table where this particular primary key field, for example, employee ID, equals to certain number or certain value. So the primary key is the field which gives you access to the particular record. The index could be unique, of course, and it could be ensured on the database to being unique, but it's not used to retrieve a record. For example, the index field could be maybe empty. It's unique, but it's empty. And primary key never could be empty. So that's the difference. So primary key is the key we use to access the record. Next question from Edward. On the employees table of your sample database schema, please explain the self-referential relationship and how it is used. Oh, very simple. This is a foreign key which sets reports to field and points it to the employee ID. If we go to designer back and I go to this employees table, you will see what it is effectively is the field which sets the manager for each employee. And the manager itself is also employee, so that's the thing. For example, I have employee, oh shoot, let me find some table which doesn't have that many here. For example, the king is the manager for Nancy Davolio, and so this is his manager. Andrew Fuller doesn't have any manager. Janet Leverling has a manager Fuller. So now what we can see, we can, for example, ask for the Fuller. When I look on his particular record, I can see all the employees right here who reports to this guy. So he is the manager of Janet, Margaret, Stephen, Laura, etc. So the self-reference in this case is done because the manager of any of the employees is also an employee. So that's why it points to the same table. If we would have a different table, for example, table of managers, then this would be a foreign key to this table of managers. But in this particular schema, managers are employees, so it shows to itself. And then there are a lot of interesting things you can do. For example, in the same table I have been showing, right here, I see the report of sales for everybody who reports to this employee. So to the Fuller, I see the Stephen Buchanan, Laura Callahan, Janet Leverling, and Peacock Margaret. These four are reporting to this employee, so this is an interesting chart in this case. Now the question from Jim. Is there a location in the help where all the assumptions made by IronSpeed based on the field naming, types, etc. are listed? No. There's no such help which are listed one by one. But technically, the idea is the following. If you have camel case, IronSpeed treats it as two words. If you have ID, IronSpeed usually removes it from the label. There is one important thing, effectively, related to the names. And I want to show it right now because it's kind of, it's from one hand it's important and it's related to databases and data types, which I mentioned. When I have been talking about the data types, I mentioned that having data type as image for images is much better than have it as string. And to illustrate that, I might not be able on this particular database, but let me quickly create another application. It will take just 1 minute. By the way, you will see how fast it is. With the Access Southwind sample database, because it has a special field, and this would be really useful for me. Okay, sorry, let me clear it first. I don't want that many table. I want to do it quickly. That would be enough. And I just created my app for now. Let me do it. My app 20 here, for example. Web application, Visual Basic, inline, done. Another one important thing is that when you have an image or sometimes a file field, you want to have some kind of companion field or the field where you want to store your name of the file, where you want to upload this particular image or this particular file. For example, in the database I showed you, there's no such field, so we don't know where to upload it and what's the name of the file. But in this Southwind schema, it's slightly different. And while it's building, let me go to schema. You see it has a picture, article, and article path. And those could be used to display the file name. So if I go to this table, and let's see, here's an article. However, when I try to go here, I have article browse here. So this is effectively a binary field, right? But how this binary field shows the name of the file? Well, this is because we have article and article path. And article path automatically, if you notice, I didn't do anything literally, I just create application, automatically configured to store the name of the file. So if I click on this, it will offer me to save to this particular file, not to some test or something, but to this particular file. And because, and how it happens very simple. This name is already stored in database and shows right here instead of the article. So how it happens? Well, if you look on the article, right here you see the file name, article path. This is so-called companion file, or the name where the file name is stored. For example, for picture, I don't have such guy, but here I have it. So how designer recognizes that he needs to store the name in this particular file and attach this value as a file path to this particular article field? Well, by name, because it knows that article path is the path pointing to article. And these rules are actually effectively editable because you never know what names could be in your database. So if I go to my Windows Explorer, I will show you one magical file. It's actually described in the database, but my experience shows that nobody reads any help or any documentation. So I hear this question time after time. Right here, there's a oh, sorry, I want the application to go to my designer, and my designer is, of course, in program files 86, iron speed, and this is the designer I am running now. So, oops, why it jumped? I didn't ask for that. And now click on designer. Right here is a file called configuration options, and this particular file has a special rule set how to match name of the file with the path to the image or any binary file. So you see here is a list of images it knows, picture, photo, shot, etc. And the files are file, content, attachment, and so on. So for example, in our case, it was article path, right? So it knows that if you have a path in the extension, right here, companion suffix. If you have suffix path, then treat this file as a path for this field. Or you could have not necessarily a suffix. You could have like movie name, and another field is movie. Well, it will be also treated as a name, etc. So this is the set of rules. You can read about it, but this is the magic. This is how it happens. Next question from John. Can an designer generated page allow insert, update, delete if object is really a SQL view? Yes, it allows. If you set up a virtual primary key, what I was saying, it will easily allows you to insert, update, and delete. For example, I go back to my previous application with these views right here, and let me navigate, for example, to this particular page with the alphabetical list of products, and I'll show you that I can easily go and update the record. That's why, and it will update two records effectively. It will update because it has a composed primary key pointing to product and to the category. It will try to update both records. But for example, my chunk, I don't have any clue what is this chunk. I said that it now unit price would be not 19 but 22, and click save. Chunk becomes 22, and if I go to products table, you will see that the price changed. So if you set up virtual primary key or primary key in database, yes, it allows you. It will automatically go to each table and update it. However, you have to be sure that your primary key is really unique. If it won't be unique, the access to database fails. It will give you exception saying that your virtual primary key is not unique. So that's important. Next question from Jim. When you have normalized your database, Iron Speed will bring in all the other tables. If you don't want some of the related tables in your application, how do you remove them? Oh, you don't need to remove them. Well, technically, they are not hurt. There are no queries created for them, and even if they are included here and not used, well, let them sit there. Why would you need to remove them? If you would need them later on, you see, they kind of would be useful because for those related tables, you would be able to create lookup or child table, even if you don't want the page itself to be created from this table. You might want to have the list of children or something. But again, you can add new tables, you can link them, but you can't unlink them. You see, you only can link not existent. So this, after it was added, you can't do anything, but you can link another one. So no deletion. You see, including application is gray out after you edit. Could you show the ERD diagram again that shows how employee table points to itself? Yeah, sure. This is the diagram, and you can list of the foreign keys for this table. Effectively, if you click on this guy, it's employees between employees. But if you want to know which particular key is it, you go to your tables list and you ask for the employees keys. So you can have details of this guy. For example, if I click modify, this guy, oops, it's too small. Hold on. I can't make it bigger because this is a Microsoft design. But in any case, you can always click here that it is between reports to and employee ID. So here's the specification. You can change it as well. Next question from Tony. I have two tables, address and company. All addresses are stored in the address table, and address ID is the primary ID key of address, and foreign key in company. Great. IronSpeed Designer wants the address table to be parent and company to be a child. I want to create a screen where the company is a parent and the address data is displayed and can be maintained under the company fields. Well, this is not a question about who's parent and who's child, really. This is more a question of which table inside which or under which. Generally, the table which is on top, I mean physically on layout on top, has to be updated first, and which one is below the second. So you can organize the page the way that your company is on top, and then you can create actually relationships between record to record. If you know that each company has only one address, you can have record to record page. Or if your company has, you see, have foreign key pointing to address, meaning that your company could have only one address, but somehow different companies could have the same address. That's why address is a parent. In this particular case, if you have unique address for each company, again, my suggestion would be to have not table and record layout, but record and record. You can easily create such page in Designer. You just, for example, you can create new page, right? And then in new page, you can drag and drop one panel and then another panel, and you can drag and drop records. Not necessarily need to do it with a table. So, for example, you can go right here. What example can I have? Orders, order details, order ID. No, I don't know, but nevertheless, just let me show what to do. In this particular schema, I don't have this type of relationship, but I can have record over here, right? And then I have orders record over here, and this also record. Okay, and then for the second record, I would change my data source to be where the order ID equals to order ID. these were close. So now effectively I changed the relationship because really these guys has a foreign key and this guy has a primary key, but I set up it the way that this has become the real parent, and order is the record which has primary key equals to the foreign key field over here, and this is really child. Now we can update it. So I would do something like this. Question from Jeff. If you create a virtual primary key on a database view, and the designer creates the add edit pages, but they won't work unless the database view allows it. I don't know what does it mean, allow that. Well, effectively, when you update the view in this case, you are really updating tables. Yes, if you set them read-only, it won't be updated. Or you can set the view read-only. Yeah, of course, if database doesn't, well, the answer is if database doesn't allow update or edit or insert, you won't be able to do anything. So designer is cannot overwrite anything from database. Database is always the main banana here. So of course, yes, database should allow that. True. Okay. Another question from Gustavo regarding field naming conversion and labels. Is Spanish language supported? It will be supported the same way as the English language, meaning that designer looks for camel case, as I mentioned. So if you have uppercase letters inside your name, designer will treat it as a different words. But it might not be able to parse what is ID, for example, and what is name, for example, because there are certain abbreviations which designer treats like, for example, ID is being skipped inside of the label which is shown, because really all the IDs most of the time are foreign keys, so you don't want to see the ID over there. So if ID in Spanish is something different, then no, that rule won't work. So I mean, the semantic rules applied only to English. However, the camel case convention will still work. So that would be the answer. Question from Erland. Do you recommend a SQL trigger? Good question. I do not think we actually use it, so I would not say it makes harm or not, but I do not think designer right now actually use it, but I know what, let me come back on this later on. I will send you email with the answer, because right now I'm afraid to say something which is not true. I really don't remember. I don't recall by remembering the code, but just in case I will come back to you on this. Question from Fitri. If I save my image at database, what's the impact for application? Slow? How about some folder? Okay, this is a good question. It depends. It depends on the size, basically. If the images are real huge, meaning that, I don't know, you are shooting with 40 megapixel camera and save them raw or something like this, then maybe yes. If they are not that big, then maybe no. There is no exact science over here. It's well, there are some empiric rules that your database shouldn't grow over a certain size. I mean, because then the cost of maintenance of the server and upgrade will become much higher than the cost grows faster than the performance. But again, if the images are I don't know, megabyte one, then, and you don't have then thousands of them, then maybe not. In fact, Microsoft addressed this problem some quite funny way. When they created SharePoint 2007, they tried to store everything in database. So every page which is populated in the SharePoint was in fact data pulled from the database. And when you save any objects in the SharePoint lists in 2007, they were automatically saved in the database. And that causes problems because what if my object is movie? Forget about picture. What if I want to store movies? Well, my database will blow up pretty quickly. So in 2010, they changed their approach and they said that, okay, now you have choice. You can set up any list you want to be stored on the hard drive instead, and we store only link in the database. But how it would be done? That's on the kind of discretion of administrator, how to set up it. So here is the same situation. If you anticipate not large images, then you see access to database is much, much faster. So if your images are only, for example, to show on the web page, and web page images, all of them are kind of small because, well, you have a natural limitation. Even with the best screens, it's like 2,000 plus pixels by 1,000 plus pixels, right? We're not speaking about 40 megapixels over here. So for web pages, if your images for web pages, database is perfectly fine because they are small. If you want to store images of, I don't know, later on to print them in the magazines, well, maybe then you want to move those to the hard drive, so it depends. A question from Roche D. How to add where clause and filtering by combination operator other than AND and make or ring between the two filters? I don't know what's or ring. Well, if you apply two filters, they will always end. Now, if you do not want them end, but for example, you want them have or, you need to customize the code. Not that it's difficult. In fact, it's really simple, but that's what is needed to be done. For example, on the categories page right here, I have two filters. I have one filter. Okay, I have two filters on origin tail, I believe. Let me see. There should be two filters. Yeah, order ID, product ID, actually three filters right here. Now, they all, of course, always end varies with each other. So if I select both of them, I will see only products and only orders with this ID. If I want to have them or, do the following. Here is the code tab below. When I click on the code tab, let me remove these guys so you can see it. You see create where clause here. And here is where those filters are added. So this is the first filter, where clause I end the value from this filter. Then there is a next filter drop down. Here's order ID filter, I end, and so on. So all we need to do is say here, done. That's modification. That's all the customization you need to do. Automatically this method would be saved, and now it would be or. So we can even go to page and see it. But that's what you would do. Customization in the code tab for this particular filter. There is no interface which allows you to change and to or to anything else. Okay. So now you can see that, for example, I can select here some guy, and then I want to select some product ID. It doesn't work. Maybe I was wrong filter, but effectively that's what you want to do. Next question from Nisha. In application user SQL table, I have password field. Data type is varchar. Okay, how can I encrypt password field? Well, it's a good question. You can do this in Designer. For example, I can encrypt any field right here. I will show you how to do this and then explain why you don't want to do this. So, for example, I can go to my database tab. Actually, I don't want to go here. Let me find the good example. Okay, this would be a good example, actually. So, for example, I have customers table, right? And there is a company name. And imagine this is my password. I don't have password in this table. So what can I do? Well, here is the formula which modifies the value when updates, inserts, and reads. Now, if I have some encryption, what I would do, I would say, when inserting record, let's say encrypt. But this encrypt you need to create yourself, of course. You can't use the one which designer use in other cases. But you will encrypt, and then you will select your field, your company name, right? Yeah, something like this. But make sure that you have encrypt function. If you create encrypt function in the base formal utils, then you would be able to type it. So you would need to go to base formal utils and create new function. But again, this is more about functions and come to our functions webinar. Now, I will do the same thing on update right here. But then I need to do this other way around on when I read it. I want to decrypt here. Decrypt. So what will happen now, it will decrypt every time it reads from database, but encrypt when it writes back to database. So when you create this type of combination, your field will be always decrypted and encrypted. Now, why I said you should think twice before doing this. The problem is that this decryption and encryption very much depends on the algorithm in this particular application, which you will effectively create a function which does it, which decrypts and encrypts in the application. Now imagine that you want to access data in this database somehow else, for example, in the, I don't know, Management Studio, on any other application, anything else. Well, you won't be able to see it because everything is decrypted. And effectively, if you lose this application for some reason, I don't know the reason, but you lose it, then your data are really unusable. That you're done. You cannot do anything else. So if you maintain properly, you don't delete the application, etc., or you keep backup copies just in case, well, it's okay. But make sure that application is always alive, because this encryption and decryption is done on the application, not database level, but application level. Another way to do this, which most of the people use, you can set up encryption and decryption on database itself. And there are several ways to set up encryption. In 2008 R2 SQL Server, they created very nice, I don't remember exact term, but there is a nice way of all data encryption in database, which works seamlessly, and you don't need even to modify your schema or data. You just set it, switch it on, and use the same application. It will work. It automatically decrypts when it reads. Next question from Richard. After creating indexes, do you need to rebuild all and regenerate store procedures in iron speed? No. Technically you don't, because creating an index does not change the schema. It just improves performance on your database. Next, unless, of course, yeah, no, unless. True. Even if it's unique and you ensure that it's unique, again, it's only done on database level. Question from Fitri: how do get chart feature? Well, download version 8.0.1. Current version is 8.0.1, and it has chart feature. Enterprise only. How did you do the dashboard with the graphs? Please give me one example. Please attend our webinar for dashboards. It's not just a 1-minute thing. It would be on the May 25th. You can find the link for it on our start page. Oh, maybe. Oh, I'm getting a suggestion. Jill told me that next week you will find it on our start page in Designer. Currently it's not posted there yet, but you can mark the date. It's May 25th. It's just too much to give the example. It will take like 15 minutes. So go to webinar. I will be there. Jim, a question from Jim. Are the rules that govern the iron speed generation editable so that if our local design standards use key instead of ID? No, unfortunately this is not editable. It's built-in hard-coded inside Designer. And I know that a lot of people ask us about it, but it was done this way originally. And not enough people ask for this feature, so we never made any special code for that. So, no. Question from Alfonso: how is record locking managed in iron speed overall? meaning two users working on the same record at the same time. I'm used to the, okay, this is handled by means of transaction. To update the record or read record or do anything with the record, to any operation, read, update, insert, anything. Before the event happens, we create transaction, and the transaction locks this particular record, and then we update this record and release transaction, commit transaction. During the transaction, other user cannot do it, but updating of one record is really fast, so this is kind of milliseconds, and you really can't notice it. But it's done by the means of special thing called transaction. Transaction locks the record. If you look on our code for any load data, I just thinking how to better go there. Let me try. 1 second. Oops, come on. Load data. 1 second. It will be called data bind. Better, right? Okay, oh, it's all inside. It's inside. This thing's also inside. Okay, you need to go to in any of those methods, and you will see create transaction, commit transaction. You need to go to code effectively and see it. But that's you can easily actually just search for it. Transaction. Like this. For example, here I start transaction, do something, load data bind, and transaction. And between those tables is locked. What is my virtual foreign key is made of several fields like in order details. This is perfectly fine. Yes, you can create virtual foreign key like a normal foreign key as well from the several fields. Nothing wrong with that. And the only problem would be that you won't be able to click on the one of them to get into the record because it is, so it will be useful to create joins if you need to create chart or to create master detail pages. It won't be used to have hyperlinks to the detail table because the hyperlink is kind of use the value of this particular control. So it would be useful, not to the extent of the normal one, but very useful to have master detail relationship and joins. Does Iron Speed support star schema since star schemas are not normalized? Yes, of course it does support star schema. Actually, I would argue with the saying that star schema design is not normalized. It's again, if we are talking about 1NF, 2NF, 3NF, then star schema is 2NF as far as I remember. If I'm not, it's not 3NF, but I believe it's 2NF, so second normal form. But in terms of normalization in a more wider kind of sense of understanding, it's actually normalized pretty much because star schema assumes that one of your tables is pure index table and all others are details. So that's exactly what I was talking about. You have foreign keys from one table pointing to all other tables. And it will perfectly work for Iron Speed Designer, so you would be able to see the parents and children generated for every page. So yeah, sure, it works. Question from John. Table has 100 plus records, maybe 10 million customer names in customers table. How do you control how many are displayed and drop down? Very simple. There is a property for that. Again, it's not exactly the subject of this particular webinar, but if you look for the properties, maximum generate items 500 right here. So for every drop down, and this is drop down list, you will have this property set up. You can change this number. Now you always also if you have more than the number the record, you could have generated large list selector. So you will click on the large list selector and it will open the full blown page with pagination for this table where I can select the proper record. Question from Fitri, how to use outer number for primary key? I don't know what do you mean by how to use, you just set it up. So in the schema, if you set up the type of the field to be unique identifier, it will be automatically generated. Or for non-unique identifier like int, you can set up like, for example, in this particular field, and that's why I'm showing this field, you can say computed, hold on, one sec, identity. If you set here is identity to true and identity increment, it will be computed automatically in the database. So that's how it works. There's no real problem with that. Question from 50, how many databases can support this designer? As many as you want, no limit. Question from John, how did you use the SQL Server diagram to have the manager in the employees table a foreign key to itself? It's very easy. If you just do this, you go to, let's say, foreign keys, or to diagram, if you ask for diagram, for example. Imagine I don't have this key. I just delete it. Hey. Delete it. Now I want to create it again. So what I will do, I will say this. And then employees report employee ID, foreign key, reports to. Done. Back. Created. That's it. Very simple. But let me just not to save it, because it will complain to a lot of things if I save it. No. Okay. Question from Peter, how I convert a SQL Server database to Oracle? There's no easy way to do this, and we cannot help here. John, question, do the SQL Azure limited capabilities limit ISD? No, ISP Designer, well, put it this way. Our coming release, our coming release, which coming maybe too strong word, or let's say, put it this way. In our next release, when you go to Designer and open this database tab, right here, you will see actually better. Show here. On this guy, or in the new application right here, you will see SQL Azure as an option. Currently, there is no option. They released the Azure too late for us to include in the current release, but it would be included in the next release. It doesn't limit capabilities of ISP Designer. In fact, Azure, well, it does to some extent. You cannot create views in the Azure. But it's more limits not ISP Designer capabilities, it limits database capabilities. So ISP Designer will eat whatever it has, but it's just the thing that you are not able to point your management studio to Azure and create their view. But ISP Designer will work the same way. Right now, it's already 9:30, and I will answer all the questions we got so far. So if you have questions, please place them now. We kind of making last call for it. So any questions which will come in the next maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes will be answered, and after that, the train will be gone. Nevertheless, coming back to questions. Question from Dan. Sorry. How do you make a primary key on a view directly in database? How do you make a primary key on the view directly in database? Not that I'm doing this every day, by the way. But let's go to this guy. Actually, in database, I might not output. I might set it unique. I do not think you can set it after view is defined, because the view is defined by this particular query. So I would say that you cannot do it on the management studio itself. You need to set up a virtual key in the designer. That would be my guess if you created view, but I believe you can create a view with the primary key. I do not exactly actually remember didn't create views for quite a bit. Actually, let me come back on this too. I will look up. Question from Roberto. Do you have a normalization best practices to use with iOS? Yes, that's actually, I spent 15 minutes today talking about them. If you're talking about documentation, first of all, this presentation, we have it available, right? Yeah, we'll make available this presentation with all those slides. Plus, I do not remember exactly every piece of documentation we have, but again, the search of our documentation is really straightforward and easy. So I believe we do. So to know it, it's just very simple. Let's make this quick exercise. Online help. And here, let's say, normalize database. And let's guess what we will see here. Okay, what about prepare? So maybe we don't. Although I would be surprised. Yeah, we do. I knew we could not have. So this, prepare your database. Everything about it. I'm 99% sure that also has things about normalization, create child tables, separate lookup table, all these things is here. So that could help you, sure. The question from Shai, if I would to have master and details table, for example, for the order A I have made, and I wanted to delete the particular order in master table and include in the record children table. Okay, I'm trying to parse this sentence, hold on. I want to have master detail table for the order A. Okay, I want to delete particular order in the master table. Okay, got it. So if you have children in the order, I want to delete this order and all the children. Well, that will require customization. By default, you won't be able to, if you try to do this, you will get exception from database. So clicking delete on the particular parent record never deletes automatically all children by designer. And the reason for that is very simple. This is a very dangerous operation in a sense. Of course, in some situations you do want it, but you can imagine that you have some parent, like country, and you have 2,000 customers who are children of this parent, and if you click on these 2,000 customers, automatically it might not be nice. Plus, those children could be also referenced in other places. So the rule of thumb, designer never tries to delete children. But you can customize it. You would need to go and modify the delete record method. So in the designer, when you go to editable, for example, show employees, show categories is good, by the way. Yeah. So right here, if I go to categories buttons, I have here delete. Delete. If selected, I will see my click handler. Click handler start transaction, and then it call this thing. Well, you go inside this method and see that what it does, it deletes particular record. So you would need to also first, before deleting the record, to retrieve all the records which are children from database by constructing the where clause. Then delete those, and then delete this record. But it would be customization, you need to write code. Automatically, no, it's not possible. The question from Tony, if I have two tables where the second table is an extension of the first, and they have one-to-one relationship, how I include the fields from both tables in a single panel in a format that resembles data from a single table? Create a view. That's what I have been talking about. Yes, create a view which will retrieve those two tables, and in this case it will be ideal scenario because you won't have duplicates because it's one-to-one relationship. So you have exactly what you want, and then create a virtual composed primary key, so you would be able to update those records right in this view. Question from Jerry. Trigger works well. You will have to set it in the management studio. Great. Question from Fit. Wasn't a question apparently. Fitri. How to create store procedure, trigger Oracle job, scheduler, package, user account, etc. Well, this is not technically a webinar for Oracle management or creation of Oracle tables. I tried to explain major rules. The thing is that, first of all, I don't have Oracle Management Studio running here at all on my computer, so I can't even show anything. But second, this is a huge topic, and I believe Oracle might have some webinars on this thing or help, and I really can't go there. I would need to spend several hours here. Regarding store procedures, RSP Designer creates them automatically. When you create application, or even when you created application's existing one, on the application settings tab, you can select store procedures. And if you do this and click finish, I don't want it now, but if I do the click finish, after that, you can go here in the databases. And when they are selected, you will see here a new menu. Well, in fact, I can do it right now. I don't want it as public database. You will see here a menu which will say regenerate store procedures right here. So you will just click on it, and it will generate store procedures and push them inside the database. Question from Jim. Is there a place in the database settings to allow force? Oh, sorry. Once again, is there a place in the database settings to always force a large list selector? Yes, not in database. You go to application generation options, and here you see large list selector controls. In the general application options, large list selector controls. You can do it on an already existing application. I can do it right now. Right now, it creates, if you have more than store items. If I said one item, for literally every drop-down list will have large list selector. That's it. And then I need to build after that. They build all, actually, so something like this. Okay, and rebuild all. Now every table, literally every drop-down list will have large list selector. So this is it. By the way, if you want to change something globally, always go to application generation options. So right now, if I go to live preview, I would see those. Maybe not on this table because its categories table doesn't have any parents. So I need to go to something which has, for example, to, let's say, add order detail. Yeah, that would be a good one. This is largest selector here and here. You click on it, you get to large list, pagination, etc. So that's how simple it is. Question from Fitri: how to design, save, and get XML data at table? I'm not exactly sure I understand what do you mean, but if you want to export data into the XML file, you can just click export to Excel or export to Command Limited, or whichever format you want. You can import them back as well, but you cannot use XML file, XML data as a data source. Hopefully I answered your question. I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure that was the question, but nevertheless. Question from Paul. I see your application explorer under order details show, order details table shows both the code behind and controls. Yes, that's right. Oh, your application explorer shows only code behind. That's why. This is because you have most likely website. I have web application. When I create the this application, I can select will it be website or will it be web application. And the difference between them, that website has all control files into the upcode folder, which is right here on top of the application explorer. And the web application doesn't have upcode folder at all. All the files are right there where the page is. This is two ways to create a web application in the .NET. So either website or web application. In this case, I have web application, but it could be website as well. You can, by the way, if you have a website, you can convert it to web application by just selecting this radio button. You can convert back, but you can convert from website to web application. Technically, they both have certain advantages and disadvantages. Web application major difference is that all the code will be compiled in one single DLL, and this DLL will be loaded. So when you have it in production and running, it's actually faster because it's just one DLL. In the website, code is not compiled, and IIS is actually compiles it every time for it's accessed from the browser. So with the web application, there's faster response, and it's actually more effective in this case. However, if you want just to modify some page and look on the results, the website is much faster because then you don't need to recompile the whole application, only this particular page would be compiled. Next question from Jay Benson. How do we restrict the enter key from saving a record when it is mistakenly entered but not intended for saving? You need a pop-up warning, I believe. To pop-up warning, you use the same technology as it is done for delete. So, for example, if I go to this table, right, select something and say delete, you'll see it has a warning. Are you sure? You can easily search the code inside. It would be code customization. It's not difficult, but you can easily search control file code inside for the delete button. Click for this guy, and you will see how we pop up warning. I just showed you this click handler. There is a very simple warning pop-up, and then you do the same thing for save. Question from Juan Antonio: How I can to put something that doesn't sum up in this syntaxes. Hold on, let me read it again. How I can put more data in a combo box related by, I think, related by a foreign key. It's really strange. It looks like it's translated from some language automatically. How I can put more data in the combo box related by a foreign key. There is no combo box. Complete name of a customer. Oh, this is very easy. Now I see what you mean. For example, on this table, I have employee ID as a name, right? If I want to change this particular drop-down list, only this one, what I will do is I will go to this drop-down list, which is right here, and then my employee ID, you will see, if I go to formulas, it says display. Well, it was customized. I need to go to something not customized. Let me go to this guy. I see, because this application I already customized several times to show. Here it is. Let's go to populate from database, display, URL, initialize. I don't want to. Okay, here. It shows his last name right now. I want to have last name plus first name, right? Well, nothing could be easier. It's done literally like this. And then right click on here and say employee first name. Now if you go to live preview, you will see that I have last name and first name. That's how to do it. Question from Fitri. What component I must install for deploying with Oracle XE? Oracle XE you cannot use. I know you already, by the way, I know you already opened support case for this exact question, and I personally already told you that it's not possible because Oracle XE is not supported. We support only the full Oracle, and Crystal Report, as far as I know, is not supported on Oracle XE. So the answer is Oracle XE is not supported. Sorry, is it possible, question from Shai, sorry, is it possible for you to give an example code how it would be deleting for those in children table and master table? No. Sorry to say, no. Again, it's not one line of code. It is, my guess, about 25, 30 lines of code, and I won't be writing them right now. But if you have support contract with us, you open a case and we will show you how to do this. But we don't usually write codes, but we will explain you how to write and what to write and where to write. Open support case with us. We cannot write customizations right here on the webinar. Questions from Rosh D. How can IronSpeed deal with multi one-to-many relations between same two tables? I'm trying to think of what you're asking. If you have more than one relationship between two tables, it's possible, and nothing bad about it. For example, I could have several foreign keys pointed to the same primary key on the different table, and this is easy even to do. It will deal normally. Each of those foreign keys would be rendered as the hyperlink. Clicking on it, you will go to this table. Each of them will create the children, and in fact, on the Southwind table, it is a kind of existing situation, and it perfectly deals with it. I have not included all the tables over here, but maybe I included enough. Hold on, let me see. Okay, I want to go to this guy. Let me see. Maybe I will need to include all the tables. Yeah, but anyway, it will perfectly deal with this. Yeah, because right here, if I look on the orders table, I have several keys pointing to the same table, which is sales rep ID, and there was something else pointing to the same sales rep table. Maybe updated by also pointed to the same table. So it deals perfectly fine. What it will do, it will, for each of the foreign keys, it will create the child, so it will have more than one child from the same table. In fact, if you go to our sample app, you will see that. There is the full database, and orders table has more than one foreign key related to the sales rep. So you will have them several times. They could be different values, of course, but that would be perfectly fine, no problem. Question from Rushdie: how to set increment ahead beside text box? Set it to false. I understand you're asking how to remove the increment buttons. We generate by default for the numeric text boxes, for example, right here, the increment decrement buttons. So if you're talking about those, I hope, and that's what it is, right? Then to change this guy, you just go to properties as usual. So here it is. This is the unit price, and on the properties sheet, you can see here increment decrement. You can set it to no right here. Question from Shai: for that record that has that selected to choose you show earlier, record has selector to choose. I'm trying to remember what selector and what record you mentioned. For the record has selected to choose you show earlier, I can see there was only name that's shown. Is it possible for me to another field together with name? Yes, that's what I've shown, right? I just shown you how it's to edit right here on the filter. Which table was it? This table? Or this table? I don't remember. It was different application. Oh, sorry. That's why I'm thinking why I don't see it. But I said you just modify the display as formula, and it will show you first name, last name, whatever you want, any text you wish. I believe it was orders table, right? Is it? Was it? Hopefully I remember correctly. Here you go. There's now two names. Question from Rosh D. In opening large list selector, is it available to pass description value rather than ID value to the opener window? You can customize it, but you don't want to do this, because if you pass description value, you won't be able to select effectively. The ID value which is passed is used by control to select. Otherwise, it won't be able to select. Yes, you can pass whatever you want. It's customized on the button click, but I wouldn't suggest doing this. What? Which name? I changed here a customer. Yeah, I was modifying something for a customer. I did modify something. I don't even remember what. No, it's not. It's not a filter. It's not filter related. No, it was something else I did for this table. It's completely not filter related. I can't see what's going on over there easily. It shows to customer ID. I might change on something on database. I don't even remember what it was. But no, it's not filter related. What connection between Crystal Report 11 and Oracle XC, whose speed support to run a deployment good Oracle DB? We didn't support Oracle XC, I told you. Another question: how to connect two tables with different database? Very easy. You just you can add another database on the application wizard. You just go here and say add, and you add another database. You can use different tables in the same application. The only problem with that is that they should not have same table names. The RNC designer wasn't allowed that, so will not allow that. But as long as the table names are different, yeah, you can use different database and different tables. That was the last question. I do not have any questions anymore, and it's about the time to finish already. So I would like to thank you all for your attention, and hope to see you all on my next webinars. And again, on May 25th, we will have webinar regarding the charting and reporting, and we have tomorrow what's different. And we have advanced class tomorrow as well. So regarding formulas, I saw there were questions about formulas. So, but go there. I will be talking about formulas tomorrow, at the same time. So thank you very much, and bye.